The AllStar app, the #1 app in the business. UFC, Bellator, One Championship, PFL, and more. Get the app right now. Link in description. Let's start with something that I'm interested about you, man, is you and your two brothers.
Yes,
I
sir.
came across a video of like highlights of you guys fighting, and I was like, damn, three of you.
Yeah,
That's not
three of
a
us.
house that you want to break into right there.
Imagine, dude. Imagine. We're a unit, baby. We take out anybody. Yeah, yeah. I'm the oldest out of the three, and then I got my brother Asif and then
Yeah.
Motaz. And they're both 45ers, actually, which is money for me because I get to train with two guys that are just a little bit bigger than me, you know?
Yeah.
Asif actually has the same problem you were just talking about. He had a bulging disc in his neck, and he's been out for about, I think his last fight was like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. He's been out with injuries. He trains with us here and there, and obviously he's always at the fights, but he can't like do the day to day just because it's just too much on his body. And then my brother Motaz is with me here every day. He's the brother that moved out here with me to Colorado.
Nice, nice. What is your first memory of like scrapping with your brothers though? What's the first? Because you're the oldest, so you remember.
Yeah. I mean, my first memory was me beating their asses. Us when we were kids. I remember we would watch a lot of WWE wrestling when we were young, or Dragon Ball Z. And we used to one of our favorite games when we were kids. I don't know if anybody else was doing this, but we would take like a blanket, and lay it on the ground and be like, if you get off the blanket, you lose. Just like how the Dragon Ball Z was with the tournament. And we would
Yeah.
wrestle each other to the point of where we were drenched, sweating. You know what I mean? Bump each other into the couch, destroying furniture just to see who would win. And then obviously, because I was a little bit bigger than my brother Motaz, he was a little chunky boy, little chunky kid. I used to always put him in headlocks and hold him down and pin him down with my knees. That's all the memories I got. But then the older we got, the more I'm like, oh shit, they got stronger, they got bigger.
Yeah.
I'm right now. We have it's four brothers I have, and out of all of them, I'm the shortest and probably the lightest. And I'm the oldest too, which was weird. But my mom keeps feeding them boys.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. When did you notice like now I gotta really go at these kids? What age was that? Like, man, you guys were just like horse playing and shit.
Man, Asif, the second oldest, my younger brother, is man, when he was like 14, 15, that motherfucker used to do he had a deep obsession, bro. He had a deep obsession with P90X when we were a
Okay.
kid. Like I remember there was one day where he curled. He literally did curls so hard when it was time for us to eat dinner. My mom, he couldn't even pick up his hands to eat because he
Yeah.
like blasted his biceps and forearms from just doing curls like crazy because he wanted to be big and strong, And I think he was like 14 at the time, and I was like
Yeah.
16, 15. And at that point, I'm like, man, this motherfucker almost killed himself just doing curls, to the point where he literally couldn't pick up the spoon to eat that dinner that time. And that's when I knew, I'm like, man, his ass is coming. His ass is coming hard. I need to start picking it up myself. And then my brother Motaz was when he turned amateur, 18 years old.
Yeah.
He turned amateur, start fighting. And his first fight, when I saw him, I was like, God damn, he's very explosive and he moves so fast. And it was one of those where I'm like, man, these are the perfect training partners for the future for me to be able to train with and fight. And I try my best to give them the looks they need, and they try their best to give me the looks. And it's like I said the last LFA, no matter what, like anywhere I go, as long as my brothers are with me, I'm down to fight anybody. And the same thing with them. As long we always stick with each other, and any fight there is, we're there together.
Who was the first to kind of get into the martial arts or just MMA and all?
Me technically, but when we were kids, my dad put me and Asif in Taekwondo for
Okay.
self-defense. He put me and Asif. I think we were both. I was 11. He was like 9 or 10. He put us in Taekwondo. We did Taekwondo for like maybe 2, 3 years, and then we stumbled upon a MMA gym. You know what I mean? One day we actually, my mom and dad couldn't pick us up, and we had to walk home. So we were walking home, and we saw an MMA gym on the way home, and we walked in, and we started asking questions, and they're like, "Oh, you guys don't want to come train here? This is too tough. This isn't Taekwondo." And the next day we brought our dad and had us sign us up. And then we started learning jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and boxing. And the funny thing is, we were still doing Taekwondo, and because my dad he trained Taekwondo when he was a kid, and he wanted
Yeah.
us to have that martial art. So we still went to the Taekwondo school, but they kicked us out when we started going there and doing jiu-jitsu with the kids. Like we started learning jiu-jitsu at this other gym, and we brought it over. And I remember there was a black belt Taekwondo instructor. He was really good. We
Yeah.
did jiu-jitsu with him. Me and my brother Asif tapped him out maybe 3 or 4 times in a row. And after that, they're like, "Hey, yo, you guys can't be doing that here. You know what I mean? You guys can't be coming to the gym doing jiu-jitsu, and the kids
Yeah.
aren't like gonna be, they don't want to come here if the instructor's
Yeah.
getting tapped out on the ground." And I'm like, maybe you guys need to learn it. But that's not what they cared about. They just wanted to stick to
Nah.
their own martial arts. So we ended up leaving that gym, that Taekwondo gym. We were done with it because we knew we wanted to be MMA fighters. And then we traded. We actually got the opportunity to train with a guy named Tony Kimbrough. He's Thai. He's from Thailand, and he was training up in a gym out here or out in Chicago, and we started training under him. And then he got us kickboxing fights when we were like 15, 14. We both fought. I think it was like 15, 14, or 16, something like that. We both fought, and then we both knew we wanted to do MMA at that point. By that time, I was like, man, I can't wait to turn 18 just to be able to do MMA. And I put my head down and just grinded for the like maybe 3 or 4 years before my debut, just to be able to be ready for my debut. And then at that point, when I was ready to make my debut in MMA, my youngest brother Motaz, well, the last from youngest because there's one younger than him. When he noticed that we were jumping into MMA, he was coming with us to the gym here and there just to see what we were doing, and it piqued his interest. And it was around the same time he got into high school, and the wrestling program was there for him, and he did wrestling his freshman year, and he did obviously nobody does hot, the first year of freshman year, he didn't do so good, and then his sophomore, junior, and senior year he was on varsity the whole time, and he was one of the best wrestlers coming out of that school, so that helped him in terms of like having his wrestling. I missed my chance the wrestling as a kid because I was like I jumped into MMA like off the bat, but having him wrestle in high school and then come train with me only up my
Yeah.
wrestling, and then I transitioned to striking back over to him and the jiu-jitsu and stuff.
I love it, man. It's like you guys all like ended in the same sport, but different paths, and then all
Yes.
these paths like intertwine and help each other out, which is incredible. And it's hard to find something like that, especially with brothers. Usually brothers they're on different paths. I mean, they don't even like each other too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
no,
they're
no,
just
no.
fighting.
We no, there's
Yeah,
nothing thicker than blood.
of course.
Family's everything with us. Especially our mom and dad always taught us that ever since we were kids. Like you always, you'll have friends, you'll meet people in this and that in this world, but no matter what, your brother's always gonna have your back. And we've been like that since we were kids. We've been tight and we want to see each other succeed. So we like as soon as I told my brother Motaz I was moving out to Colorado, he didn't even think twice. He packed his bags and came out here. And anytime I tell him, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna go here, the first thing he's asking is, how can I get a plane ticket to come with you? Try to stick together.
Now let's talk about this fight coming up. LFA 147. Rickey Furar. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He has a lot of finishes. What is your breakdown of him and the matchup?
Yeah, I mean, he looks like he's a tough dude. Obviously they all are at this level. He's a gritty wrestler from Cali, I think, right? From Team Quest. He's tough. I've seen him fight before. I think he was on one of the undercards that I fought with in California. I saw he fought a dude that was from the same management team as me too, Iridium. And yeah, he's a tough dude. He's just he comes hard with that wrestling, and I love that, because I love fighting those wrestlers, those guys that want to get down and get dirty with it. Honestly, even with the last one, I expected Diego to shoot at least a little bit, or engage in the grappling, especially because he has a black belt. But he waited for me to try to take him down. He didn't want to do nothing with the ground unless it was like me taking him down, which is surprising because he shoots in all his fights.
Yeah, let's talk about the last fight against Diego, man. It went to a split decision. 2 fights before that fight actually went to a split decision. And I feel like split decisions coming out of it as a fighter, there can be mixed emotions, right? You might have felt like you won the fight and you did win the fight, or you might have felt like you won the fight and you lost the fight, man. What was your mentality after that fight?
I mean, it's crazy because I remember when I fought Leonardo Gomes, and that was the fight we were talking about for the first split decision. When I fought him, I knew in my head, I was like, I won this fight. I'm like, you know what I mean? That's why when it was like being called a split, I'm like, this is insane. But I'm like, I knew in the back of my head, I was like, it's all good. This is gonna come my way, and it did. It came my way just like how it should have. And then with Diego, I don't know. I mean, I really thought I did enough, but I was talking to a few of my teammates the other day. I try not to like I'm trying not to care too much about that because it's in the past, and it's like at the end of the day it was in my power. I could have pushed a little bit harder. Maybe it was my fault for starting to coast in the third round, thinking I was up two. That's something I had to learn. From experience, and knowing that in the future I can't. There is no coasting. There is no okay. I'm up two now. I could just coast the third. One thing I liked is there was a fight I had for LFA where there was open scoring, and that's something
Yeah.
that's honestly, it's like, listen, we need that. We need that to get going if we're not going to change the judges. I know a lot of people are talking about 5 judges or
Nah,
you know what I mean? Whatever, take the judges out of the room and put them in a separate room so they don't get
nah.
biased or something. I don't know. There's a different thing. I'm just saying open scoring. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you at least understand if you're winning, you're losing on a crazy judges scorecard. You know what I mean? sometimes you could be like, I won that round, and two judges be like, man, I think you lost. You're like, what? You're like, okay, then. So I gotta press on the gas like crazy. And I get it. People be like, oh, you'll start coasting, you'll start this. You're in the middle of a fight. You're always going to be looking for a finish. You're always going to be looking to finish a dude to get out of there. If you tell any fighter, they'll tell you, I want to spend as least time as possible in here as I can. But at the end of the day, I feel like the open scoring will help us out understanding where it's at in terms of like the judges scoring round by round, so we know what to do. And maybe adding a fourth round sudden death or something. Because
Yeah.
man, I don't know about the split decisions every time.
I agree with you on the open scoring. I think we should have open scoring because all the other stuff that people talk about is we should have half points. Nah, just have it open so the fighters know, the coaches know heading into the final round who's winning. And I don't think fighters will coast because if you're losing, you're not gonna coast.
Yeah,
You're
you're
gonna
gonna
be
press
trying
him.
to, you're gonna be going forward pressure. You know what I mean? And if you don't, then people are gonna criticize you. And I think you should be criticized if you know the score heading into the third and you're not trying to kill the other dude or pressing forward. That's justified, right? But if you don't know, then there's nothing you can really say about to the fighter. You know what I mean? But yeah, open scoring, man. I agree with that, man. It's something that I think mentally the fighters how they react to it. I think you'll learn a lot from that situation.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
100%. I mean, the one fight, like I said, that I had that was open scoring was, it felt perfect because I finished the fight. I look over to the right, I see the iPad, and it's 10-9 all across the board, and I'm like, okay, perfect. I'm gonna get another round just like that. I'm gonna press this dude, and I was able. That fight, I knocked him down early in the first round and all that stuff, and dominated him for a whole round. It could have been 10-8, but it was 10-9. It was what it was. I still won the fight, but the open scoring helps out just to have like a. You know what I mean? Kind of peace of mind of knowing where you're at, so because sometimes you don't know what these judges are looking at. You know what I mean? I feel like
Yeah.
so much of these judges aren't like they don't train or they've never trained and they're just judging off what they think is right or what they think is winning a fight. That's one other thing. Maybe changing the judges to ex fighters will help too. Or having a requirement of them training at least a little bit.
It could, man, but that's a lot to ask. You know what I mean? Like the commissions, I don't know, man. They protect their judges like they're
Yeah, I
FBI
get it.
agents or something. You know what I
Honestly,
mean?
yeah, you're not
But
lying. You're not lying.
your,
Honestly,
you
it
know,
should
your
be.
teammate went through it last weekend.
Tell me about it, Dustin.
Dustin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
bro. Bro. God, don't even start with me with that fight.
it's like if they knew, then it would have been a different story. I think that third round. You know what I mean? I'm not saying
Yeah,
that Dustin was coasting because he doesn't. Dustin was sitting on a 13. I think he was sitting on like a 13 fight winning streak. Combined
yeah.
with the
Across
kickboxing.
three sports. Yeah, across
Yeah,
three
that's what I'm
sports.
saying. I was
Boxing
just
too.
like,
Yeah.
man, that's massive, you know what I mean, for him. And he was on the verge of that top 15,
Yeah.
cracking that with this fight. I feel bad for like these split decisions and these judges, man. I don't feel bad for the judge. I feel bad for the fighters that get, screwed by the judges and they lose a lot of money on top of that, because Dustin, it's not like he doesn't get paid little money, you know what I mean? That's major money.
Yeah. That's one other thing Coach Mark was talking about was like maybe changing the pay structure if shit like this is gonna happen. Like it's not fair having a
Exactly.
win and loss bonus if you're gonna get a win stolen from you by the judges. And I get that saying don't leave it to the hands of the judges. I get it, but it's like man, you know what I mean? We're in there getting into a fight. You think the first thing the last thing we're thinking about is what the judges think. We're over here just trying to freaking make sure we either finish or dominate.
For sure. Yeah, man, those are two great points, man. Fix the pay structure or bring in open scoring. That's what we need to do. I think we
Yeah.
should do both, to be honest with
Hell
you.
yeah.
Now, coming out of that fight, man, you're returning pretty quickly. You know what I mean? It's like I think around a 3-month turnaround, right? Usually,
Yeah.
yeah, right. So
It's
that's kind of
August.
quick for going, 3 rounds. Well, how much damage did you take in that fight? Were you kind of beat up afterwards, or were you
Uh
pretty fresh?
No, not really. Not crazy damage outside just my shin from just kicking shin on shin every now and then. But like no, not crazy damage. I feel like I'm getting to the point. I'm like 28 years old now. It's like I remember when I was like 21, 22 fighting. I was like my knuckles would hurt after the fight, or you know what I mean. This would hurt, that would hurt. I feel like the years of just pressing and hammering my body down got it to a point where it's like I just feel like now it's like outside of the kicking, obviously with everybody, you're gonna get a little bit of damage. But outside of that, no, I didn't really take a lot of damage in that fight. I wanted a quick turnaround. I wanted to. I got. That's the thing. As soon as I was done with that fight, I went and cornered my boy Yusuf Zalal for his UFC fight, where the judges gave him a draw on that one too, which was insane because he won the first and the third. But I went and cornered him for that fight, and then as soon as we were done with that, we got back home, and I got right back to training, and I was just getting ready to get on a card, and it came right in November. It's been regularly, in my career where I fight in November, so it's perfect timing. I feel like just
Yeah.
just a nice little cycle. I fought. This is about to be my fourth fight with Factory X, and I've been here for a year. November is
Mhm.
a year. So yeah, I like the fast turnaround, especially because I stay in the gym 24/7. And it keeps me focused and it keeps me in the mode where I need to keep my weight low. It's that time where it's like where a fight ends and you kind of do. You're like you're saying you sometimes you do take that damage, or even if you don't, but you're like, okay, there's gonna be a minute before I fight again. You start getting big. You start getting out of shape a little bit. And I don't like doing that. I like to just stay on the grind and stay down and stay ready. And then if I'm doing that, I want to fight. I want to compete. That's the reason I'm doing this. So I love that fast turnaround. I feel like I'm more than ready. I'll get this fight in, and then just like everything else in my career, I'll end up fighting again in February probably.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what
Do
I
you
mean?
feel
That's
like it's easier with the colder weather to kind of just chill out and get a little thicker, eat a
man.
little
I
bit
mean,
more?
it's definitely yeah. Honestly, it's definitely easier with the colder weather. Fucking cold. We were just talking about that today because people always be like, because I complain about the cold all the time, and people be like, why are you complaining about the cold? You're from Chicago. I was like, listen, I don't understand when people say shit like that because they act like I'm living outside. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm in a house. My car has warm seats. My fucking my steering wheel warms up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, everything I have is warm. I have a jacket that has warmth in it. So it's like even though I live in the cold, like I try not to spend too much time outside in the cold.
Mhm.
I'm outside of like the summer where I love to run outside. I try not to run too much in the winter just so because it's dangerous and it's too cold. But we have the gyms for that. But yeah, I feel like it definitely is easier to stay at home and order some food and just chillax, especially when
Yeah.
you got some downtime or some
Yeah.
a little bit of time separation between fights.
Yeah. I agree with you, man. It's easy when it's cold. How do you expect, man, to perform in this one, man? It's a pretty quick turnaround. I feel like, I think you could build off the last fight as well. You know what I mean? It seems like you learned a lot with that one.
Yeah, hell, that's the best thing. It's like when you're in there, you know what I mean. You feel like you level up regardless of the win or loss, and I feel like that's one of those things. Like Ricky hasn't fought since maybe a year now.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I'm not gonna lie, there's gonna be I don't care who you are, and I know you gotta just like Dominic Cruz says, you gotta spar hard, and that
Mhm.
cobwebs aren't real, this and that. But when you get in there, it's gonna feel a little different than a hard like even a hard sparring match. So I feel like that's gonna be one thing to my advantage. I was just in there, I'm ready. I have a game plan in my head of what I want to do. I felt like with Diego, I kind of went in there without really a game plan. I went in there I'm like, bro, I'm better than him. I'm just gonna get in there and show him I'm better than him. With this one, I have a little bit more of a game plan. I have setups I want to do. I'm gonna try to dink him up in the head with my knees or my elbows or my high kicks. And if he wants to wrestle, I'd love that. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of times people be like, oh, be careful, he could take you down if you're in this or that. I'm like, listen, it makes it easier for me to get on top if he shoots. You know what I mean? If he shoots, I'll end up on top. I'll end up on top eventually. He could shoot and try to hold me down as much as he wants. But if I shoot, I'm gonna stay on top the whole time. I feel like I got decent enough control. So I'm excited for this matchup. I feel like he's gonna bring a lot of good things that I do out of my game.
November 18th, LFA 147. For more MMA news, go download the AllStar app in the descriptions. Askar, thank you so much, man, for the time. It's always good catching
Dude,
up with you, man. It's a fun chat
love
every
it.
time.
Thank you, bro. Honestly, I love talking to you, bro. Thank you.